Hey, happy Friday. It's IB Nation Sports Talk. He's Vince. I'm Sean. He's got a basketball game to go to here in a little bit.
No, yeah.
I don't. So
no, you don't.
So here we are.
Do you miss it? Do you miss not having all your Fridays and Saturdays and Tuesdays and sometimes Wednesdays taken up?
Not in the least bit.
Okay, just checking.
Not in the least bit. Tommy kind of held us hostage for the like button yesterday, and he said that he preemptively gave it a like tonight. So I appreciate you doing it without making us earn it. Anthony said he hit the like button because we're doing a show on Friday with no game scheduled. Yes.
This is true.
Props to them for providing quality customer service. That's what we're here for.
It's true.
Quality customer service. Joe wasn't expecting a Friday show. His great day just got better. Thank you very much.
Great day just got better, Joe. Wow, man. I wish I was you.
Got a lot to live up to with some of this stuff, though.
You're not kidding.
Well, Blake Fisher made the announcement today. He's declared for the draft. He is going to opt out of the Sun Bowl at the same time. Did it on social media, of course, this afternoon.
Officially,
yes. Yeah. And like a lot of people, I am surprised that we didn't hear more this week. We got Maris Leafau at the beginning of the week, and we end up with Blake Fisher at the end of the week. I thought there would be 2 or 3 more this week, but
at least
here we are.
Yeah.
We'll save that. We'll kind of get into more of that later as we go on. We will be a little bit abbreviated. I mean, we're only going to be able to go for about an hour tonight because Vince has got to get, he does have a Penn basketball game that he's got to go to. So we do have some rapid fire planned and stuff like that. But of course, as always, if you're tuning in live, throw in any questions, comments, whatever else, and we'll try to get to them as we go. I was just thinking about Monterey today, Brent. Sunny and beautiful in Monterey, California.
Sure it is.
It was actually a decent day for South Bend today, but sunny and beautiful is not how I would describe it.
It was 55 and overcast.
Was it?
Yeah. Okay. But I mean, it is December 8th. Yeah. So, I'm not going to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Like 55 degrees is fantastic. And it was warm enough outside that a certain someone who will remain nameless, came up to me during the school day and was like, "Hey, I'm done with all my work. Can I just go kick outside for the last 2.5 hours of school?" No, you can't. And it's not because you'll get in trouble. It's because I'll get in trouble. Come on, man. Jeez. He's like, "Yeah, we got to take advantage of these nice days." I'm like, all right. It's pretty funny.
That's a good point. I mean, get out there, but he should also get out there and kick when it's cruddy outside. You got to be able to kick in the elements as well, right?
He has been. And I've been out there shagging, all bundled up and freezing cold and everything else, So, brutal.
Does he have like the little stand and all that stuff?
Oh,
whatever you call those?
I just try to catch the ball when it goes through the uprights. I misjudged one, took it right off the chin. So that was when it was like 30 degrees outside. So that was awesome. Didn't feel like I had a chin for a little while.
Very nice.
Yeah. But anyway, so nice day for Northern Indiana today. I mean, all things being relative. But I'll tell you what, I'm still a little depressed, Sean, when they announced, like we're sitting there waiting for the bowl announcements, since we're talking about the Sun Bowl. And I was holding out hope for that Holiday Bowl, man, in San Diego. And then they said it was going to be an ACC team versus USC. I was like, dang it. Oh, so depressed at that point.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Jeez. That'd be I think that's the bowl that everyone in this beat really wants to go to. Is they'd like to experience the Holiday Bowl just once, just once.
Fantastic. Even though it's at a baseball stadium, I don't care. It's also in San Diego.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
I can get on board with that.
Just one time, baby. Just one time.
Yes. Help me out. Help a brother out, man. And then they said it was the Sun Bowl in El Paso, and I said, pass.
Little bit different. Little bit different. So Blake Fisher, 2-year full-time starter. Of course, his freshman year, he started off the season as the left tackle, got injured right away against Florida State, sat the rest of the regular season, played in the Fiesta Bowl, but he has started 26 games since then, including the Fiesta Bowl at right tackle. End of his junior season, he's leaving with eligibility on the table. So what do you think, Vince? What do you think about Blake's decision to head off to the NFL after his junior?
Well, I think at this point we have to take stock in the entire career at Notre Dame, right? And I think it was premature. I mean, I think that's a safe thing to say. I think he could have used another year of development and really raised his draft stock, to be perfectly honest with you. I think that, you could make an argument that, I don't know if regressed is the right word, but hasn't gotten better since he stepped foot on campus at Notre Dame. And it's been 3 years. Now, he did beat out Joe Alt to be the starting left tackle his true freshman year.
Yeah.
As freshman. I mean, call that what you will, right? Got hurt in the very first game, and then it was kind of the carousel of left tackles until they landed on Joe Alt, and he hasn't looked back and all of that, right? And so I'm a little surprised, to be honest with you. I've heard some of the backstory and things like that, so it's a little less surprising, I guess. But at the same time, I think that if anybody was actually looking at this from a neutral point of view, they would have said, hey, another year will help you. You don't have to come out after your third true year in college with 2 years of starting under your belt. Now's the time to come back. But, he's obviously got different people telling him different things, and we'll see what happens in April.
Honestly, obviously you go pro, you've got a chance to make money, but the NFL is not a developmental league. Like you've got to be ready to get in there and go right away. Have guys ever been undrafted and worked their way into a starting position? Of course. And,
Sure.
Like Danny Pinter, kid here, who, you coached at Adams High School and went to Ball State, played against Notre Dame, and, he was drafted by the Colts. He's actually injured this year. He hasn't been playing,
broke his foot,
at all this year. But broke his foot. Like, was it training camp? Maybe
it was early
on. Yeah, something like that. But this is a guy who worked his way through the ranks, and he was drafted, kind of a swing player, interior offensive lineman for the Colts after playing some tackle in college. And, he worked his way into a role, but it wasn't necessarily, still a full-time role. It was like he took advantage of some opportunities when some guys got hurt. And, that's kind of where Blake Fisher, I think, is ultimately going to end up, because he's not going to be a first or second round guy. And the more they invest in you up front, the greater your chances are. But that is also like the more they invest in you up front, the more they think you're ready to go right now. And I just think it's going to be an uphill battle for Blake Fisher ultimately. Again, I'm not saying he's not going to make a roster and he's never going to play in the NFL. It's just going to be harder for him because there are things that he needs to work on. And, I think the recruiting ranking, and I think this happens with some guys, the recruiting ranking he came in with, that changes expectations right away in terms of, it changes it for all these guys, especially if you're a 5-star, like what they think their playing time is supposed to be early in their career. And then it also, I think, accelerates their expectations for what they think their career is supposed to be, both in college and, like with this decision, getting to the NFL. And because of NIL, players are allowed to hire agents now while they're still in college. And Blake Fisher's, like, look at his Twitter page. He's had an agent for a couple of years. He's got that representation right on there. But the agents start talking in your ear, and that's where and they start talking about, you got to start your NFL clock. You got to get your money and, all this different stuff. Like we were talking yesterday about Audric Estime and money now, potentially, if he stayed with NIL versus getting drafted. And I think it's as we've talked about, it's different for running backs because of the wear and tear and the pounding
Sure.
that those guys take on their bodies. But Vince, I mean, when this news dropped, I started searching all over the place looking for draft evaluations on Blake Fisher, and I got to tell you, you know, Mel Kiper, Matt Miller, Field Yates, Daniel Jeremiah, Dane Brugler, they are very few and far between. You know, like
Yep.
it's hard to
Sure.
find much that's written, especially recently. There was some older stuff when Blake Fisher's stock was still higher, but you know, that's all really outdated right now. The best ranking I can find is CBS Sports has him as their number 79 overall player, number 13 tackle. So that's third round right there. And that's not even taking into account, you know, they're like compensatory picks are going to be added. And, you know,
Sure.
when teams start getting into those spots, you know, what do they need? And that can make a guy fluctuate up or down and any of that kind of stuff. Pro Football Focus has him at 117, you know, whereas obviously Joe Alt is a consensus top 10 pick, number 2 overall tackle, you know. So there are things I think he still needs to work on. And I really think that staying for another year really would have benefited Blake Fisher much more. Like he could have put himself into a first or second round conversation next year rather than a mid round day 3 guy, which I think is ultimately what he's going to end up being out of this.
I would say, yeah. I mean, I think coming back was definitely the right call, but he decided not to, and I think, man, I think part of it is also, you know, he's in the shadow of Joe Alt. I don't know how else to say it. He's in the shadow of Joe Alt, and in his mind. So I'm trying to put myself in Blake Fisher's shoes, right? I'm the starting left tackle as a true freshman at the University of Notre Dame. That's something that just doesn't happen, right? It's happened a couple of times over the course of history at Notre Dame, and he was that guy until he got hurt. And then Joe Alt eventually gets inserted into that spot. And from that day forward, Blake Fisher is in the shadow of Joe Alt.
Mm-hmm.
I think this would have been a great opportunity for him to be the guy and to, you know, create the shadow as opposed to being in the shadow.
Yeah, he
Right.
could have been the guy everyone's talking about next year.
Absolutely. And I think that being in the shadow for the last 2.5 years affected him. I do. I think he probably thought all along,
The
I'm better.
conversation was supposed to be about him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm better. I'm supposed to be the guy. And I think he's going to take that for a spin. I think he's going to take that mentality for a spin. I just, you know, that's my take on it. That's my assumption. And I get where he's coming from. He was the dude and he got passed up and he wants to be the dude again. I think he should have been the dude on the offensive line next year at Notre Dame. But he's saying, hey, if Joe Alt can be this guy, I can be that guy in the NFL too.
Yeah.
That's my take on the situation.
Yeah. I don't disagree with any of that. Tyler asks if we think he'll be a guard in the NFL. And I honestly think that what his skill set is right now, that is probably what he is. I mean, that
Mm-hmm.
someone could still see him as but like the footwork is his biggest thing. You know, like when you look at some of the things that have been written about him, you know, they talk about his strength. That's good. You know, good run blocker, all that kind of stuff. But where the biggest issue, one of the biggest issues that he has is just when his feet start moving, he gets off balance. And, you know, like his ability to kind of control his weight and control his body when he's out there pass blocking,
Right.
you know, in his pad level and, you know, those kind of things, that's been an issue for him. And it's a much bigger issue, obviously, as a tackle than as a guard.
Yes.
You know, you can cover some of those things as a guard that you can as a tackle because you are out there, you know, blocking pass rushers, kind of, you know, edge rushers and all that kind of stuff. So that's where I've always, just based on what we've seen from him this year, that's what I keep saying, that I see Blake Fisher much more as an NFL guard right now than as a tackle. And again, that could have changed with another year in working on some of those things, but that's not going to happen now.
Yeah, and somebody mentioned that maybe he was asked to leave. I don't see that being the case.
No.
With the depth chart at tackle right now, I do not see that being the case in any way, shape, or form. Not like Marcus Freeman goes over his decisions with me, but I just, based on the roster, I just don't see how that could possibly be. I just
Right.
that doesn't compute for me. This was a situation where Blake told Notre Dame what he wanted to do.
Yeah, this isn't like, hey Blake, you've been here for 5 years
Right.
already.
Right.
There's no more upside. It's
The
time to,
true
that's
junior.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's where a lot of those conversations take place. He's still a good, I don't want to mistake this. He's still a good
Yes.
college tackle.
Yes.
But there's a difference between a good college tackle and one who's going to be a difference maker right away in the NFL. And making this
Yeah.
decision, it seems like he's the latter more than the former.
I think I agree with you and some of the posters in that I think he could be a really good to great guard at the college level too. And then that could translate potentially to the NFL. The problem is Notre Dame is absolutely loaded at guard. I mean, they're loaded with interior guys. They're not loaded at tackle. And so the reality is he's probably coming back as a tackle at Notre Dame. He very clearly said he has no desire to play left tackle. And so he comes back as the right tackle at Notre Dame, and maybe he's like, I feel like I've done all I can do. And okay, I mean, if that's what you think, then okay.
Yeah, I mean, there are plenty of good tackles in the NFL who end up playing guard, or good tackles in college who end up playing guard in the NFL. I mean, Zach Martin being the obvious one, but like Zach Martin was, he was a left tackle. He was a really good, sound left tackle, but he has become one of the best guards in the history of the NFL. I don't have to say his, but there are plenty of other guys like that as well. It's, just because of that. And like what we've talked about, like the footwork, the pass blocking is the main thing. Like there are still things that they are good at, but I just don't see him right now with the skill set that he has being an NFL tackle. And again, you don't go to the NFL to work on you're still going to work on things. You go to practice, you go to training camp and all that different stuff, but it's just so much harder once you get there. Like I said, the NFL is not a developmental league. It is the rosters are much trimmer, and like they don't have 15 offensive linemen sitting around at any one time like you have in college.
They usually
what can you do for us
7?
now?
They dress like 7. They dress the 5 starters, and then they've got like one sub for the interior and one sub for tackle, and that's about it. Maybe 8, but they just don't dress that many guys in the NFL because you only get to dress 53, right? So, or no, you can't. I think you can dress less than 53 actually on game day. 53 are on the roster, but I don't think you can dress 53. I could be wrong about all of that, but the bottom line is your numbers are limited on the sideline. You don't get to dress anybody that you want like you do in college.
Right. Tyler Smith is another one that actually was drafted as a he was a tackle in college. He's playing for the Cowboys now. Another guy who's a guard, and I just saw a comment. Did I star it? From Joe? Would I want the Cowboys to draft him as a guard? I mean, I would take him.
Yeah, I would too.
Yeah, for sure.
I would definitely do that. I would,
for sure,
because he does have a
where
lot.
The Cowboys are right
ability.
now, they need like tackles going forward, just health and stuff like. But like if Smith ended up popping back out and playing tackle, for example, I would take Blake Fisher as a left guard for sure.
Yeah.
Because again, there's just a big difference between what you have to do and the way you have to move your feet playing guard versus tackle. So I would take that.
And I will also say, if he ends up being a late day 2, early day 4 kind of a draft pick, he could end up being a steal. I mean, he could end up being a steal as long as he's being drafted to a team that has a good offensive line coach and they're willing to take their time with him a little bit, because I don't think that he's plug and play. I don't think he's plug and play right now. Yeah. But he's definitely a really good depth piece that can work his way up. And so if you've got a really good offensive line coach, you don't need him to step in right now. I think he could be one of the bigger steals in the draft.
Yeah, I mean, he could be a guy, by the middle of the season, somebody gets hurt, kind of like what we were talking about with Danny Pincher with the Colts. Guy gets hurt, you plug him in there. Like, I don't see him as a center potentially. And a lot of those guys, they, especially when they're swing guys, they want that kind of versatility again, because you're talking about roster limits and you can end up, talking practice squad and whatever else. So
sure. I mean, he'll make a check. I think he's going to make a team. He'll make a check. He'll be a professional football player. You can't just pass up that kind of talent level, that kind of ability. I get it, and I have no problem with it, and I think it's all true. So he'll be making money as a professional football player, whether it's on the practice squad, whether it's on a 53-man roster, whatever the case may be. He's going to get drafted. He's going to be making money. I just think that he could have helped himself by sticking around.
Yeah. But again, like depending on where he gets drafted, if things don't go right, you also leave yourself open to being a cut at the end of training camp. If a team decides, well, we're better off with what we got, over here, or another guy they drafted. So
somebody will pick him up, though, don't you think? Like somebody at that
I
point
would think worst case he'll be on somebody's practice squad.
Yes. Yeah. Agreed.
That's worse. There's a lot of offensive linemen from Notre Dame, obviously, in different capacities in the NFL. That Miami Dolphins in-season Hard Knocks show that's going on. The first show, they were in a meeting room, and I was like, "Hey, is that Liam Eichenberg?" And then sure enough, there was Liam Eichenberg. A few, it was like much closer up. So it's like, yeah, Liam. You kind of forgot about the fact that Liam was down there with the Miami Dolphins, but there are other guys.
I didn't know that
all over the place. So.
I did not know that.
What do you think about the bowl opt-out part of this? I know that you're of the opinion that they should all play every game, and I don't completely, I'm not completely like scale of 1 to 10. I'm maybe an 8 in agreement with that.
That's fair. And that's probably honestly where I'm at now. Like I get where we are, right, with college football. Like I get it. Just don't like it. Like I get it. And I understand why guys opt out of the bowl game, and it makes sense. And I get the reasoning for it. I don't know. I mean, would it really have hurt Blake Fisher to opt out of the Sun Bowl? Or how much would it have helped him to be in the Sun Bowl? I don't think either question is yes. So I think him opting out is fine. Like, I guess I don't have an issue with it. And look, you need to figure out real quick what you've got at tackle, because I think we can all.
I mean, it's going to give them the opportunity.
Yeah,
now.
Right. And so I'm actually okay with it in this regard, because now you're going to practice for X amount of practices with whoever's going to step in his spot.
Most likely Emil Wagner, based on everything that we've seen and all that kind of stuff.
Then you get an entire game without Blake Fisher. Look, he started 26 games in a row, right? And so you're going to get somebody different at right tackle, and you get to see some game reps and all of that. So from a Notre Dame standpoint, I get it. I think that from a gameplay standpoint, I don't think you lose a whole lot by plugging somebody else in. And so, okay, I get it. That's fine. Let's move forward. It's all right. In this case, I think every player, to me, is kind of a case all by itself.
I don't get what, like Maris Leofau is opting out, for example.
Why?
And Marist, again, like this, there's this website, again, like there's not a lot of information on Maris Leofau, but the information I could find, Draft Tech has him rated as the number 244 player overall, the number 11 off-ball linebacker. There are 224 picks in the draft in 7. Again, that's not figuring in compensatory picks. But why is Maris Leofau opting out? Why is Blake Fisher opting out as a potential 3rd-round pick? And these are healthy guys. Mm-hmm. Christian McCaffrey and Leonard Fournette are the guys who started this trend. It's been 6 years ago, I think. They were both banged up during the season.
Right.
And they were going to be 1st-round picks, and they wanted to basically heal their bodies up so they could, get to the combine, show themselves, and do all this different stuff. They were 2 of the first opt-outs, McCaffrey and Fournette, in the same draft. But again, for true health reasons. And now we've talked about this before. It's just become a status thing. Everyone thinks that they're supposed to opt out for some reason.
Silly.
What are you protecting yourself from?
You're coming back. You're coming back to me.
Yeah.
Come on, baby. Come on. I love it. I love it.
It's just it's it's just driving, again, like I understand first round guys who have, and even to some extent guys, maybe who are going to be in the second round. And somebody brought up Jalen Smith, and Smith is a prime example. He might have been the number one overall pick
Oh yeah,
in the draft.
there was debate about that.
Yeah,
At that time.
he
Yeah.
was going to be a top 10 because
Oh,
draft
easily.
processes can obviously change some
Sure.
things. But Jalen Smith, with his athleticism and speed and agility, like he would have tested through the roof at the
Oh
combine.
my
And I
gosh.
wouldn't have doubted at all if he had gone number one. But, like kickers and punters have the longest careers on average in the NFL. Quarterbacks are number two because, obviously you've got multiple quarterbacks. And, as we've seen before, guys can make a long career out of being backup quarterbacks. Offensive linemen have the third longest careers
Really?
average in the NFL. Running backs
The bottom.
last.
Yeah.
Offensive linemen are third. So I just, in Blake Fisher's case, and in really Joe Alt and Audric Estime are the only two from Notre Dame this year who I would say makes complete sense if you're going to opt out of the bowl game, because running backs, why you want to take that, any extra pounding on your body and take a chance maybe of, cranking a knee or
Right.
whatever else. And obviously Joe Alt is going to be a top 10 pick. Those two guys I can understand. Anybody else, it's just like play the game, play the bowl game. I don't get it. I just don't get it at all.
There are two guys I could make an argument that I agree with opting out. Only two. Man, 2.5. I'll say 2.5. The number one guy is Cam Hart, because he's had
I forgot about Cam Hart, because he does have
he has a legit
injury
history, and he's healthy right now. He proved he can go through an entire season healthy, and I get why he would opt out if he does. I'm on board. In fact, if I had his ear, I would tell him to opt out. I'd be like, you know what, dude? There is nothing you can do against Oregon State that is going to help you at this point.
Right.
Opt out, brother. Like, thank you. Opt out. You're done. The other one is Estime for the same reasons that you gave. Like, I get that. Plus, the running back room is loaded. Not that should have anything to do with his decision making, right? But it is. And so, from a Notre Dame standpoint, I get that as well, right? And then the only other one would be Joe Alt, because he's going to be a top 5, top 10 pick. Like,
right.
That is the only other one that I could make the case for. Although I would love to see him play. And I'm not saying that the reason we haven't heard from him yet is because he's, still thinking about it or whatever. But like, I would love to see him play in this game, because I just think that's who he is. But man, I would probably, I try to think about what I would tell a player. I would probably tell him, look, man, you're going to be top 10. You don't want to jeopardize that with somebody accidentally rolling up on the back of you or whatever the case may be. Like, you've made it this far. You started for 2.5 years. Like, hey, man, you're an All-American in every list. You're the number 2 tackle. You're this, and this. Okay, you know what? You should probably sit out. Anybody else, I'm telling them to play, and that includes Sam Hartman. Anybody else.
Yeah, I completely concur with all of that. Yeah. And I was just thinking about, like, as you were talking about that, Brandon Joseph, he came up yesterday, and he's a guy who's, well, is he still around? No, I don't think he's even still around anymore. He was with the Lions.
Essentially got benched, towards the end of the year. And
yeah. But well, did he get benched, or did he essentially opt himself out at the end because
either way,
protecting himself?
Yeah,
for draft and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, either way, he wasn't playing, and there's no reason he should have opted out. He didn't play that well to begin with. So,
yep. So, what do you think? Like, are you, as you think about what the offensive line is most like? We still haven't got a decision officially from Joe Alt, but now we know that, like, with the exception of Joe Alt, the offensive line is going to look a lot different in the Sun Bowl than what we've seen all season, especially if we assume that Alt is going to be out, because again, now most likely Emil Wagner is what I would expect
Sure.
at right tackle. That's what the depth chart has said all season, and he had a nice training camp. I'm actually kind of excited to see what Emil Wagner can do in a
Sure.
game, as a starting right tackle. But I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I have no problem, bringing him in. I mean, look, Blake Fisher didn't play great. He had some moments. He flashed, and you could see what people would get excited about. And there were also moments where you're like, wow, that was not good. And so I think it's time to see what else you have. I mean, if that's his decision to opt out, then I'm excited to see. Like that's what I love about college football. All right, I'm rambling a little bit, but that's what I love about college football is that the turnover. Like, okay, next man up. Like this guy's gone, next man up. It's not like the NFL where a lot of times you've got guys there for multiple seasons, things like that. Like I like the turnover and I like the foundational piece of college football and the development piece. Like there's not a development piece really in the NFL. There is to a degree, but not like it is in college. And that part of that's gone away with the way college football is gone. But in this particular case, man, hey, next man up. Let's see what you got. Like I'm excited to see what these backup tackles can do, because I think there's going to be a lot of competition in the spring and in the fall for the offensive line. I do.
Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
Oh, baby, let's go. Wrapping it up.
I just, we got to jump in there because, again, Vince is on a little bit of a timeline here tonight.
A little bit.
Let's start with this. I don't understand why Domer Pyle is so down. He's made a couple Riley Leonard. He says, is it time to move on from Riley Leonard?
He just visited yesterday.
Yeah.
Like what? How fast do you want this to go, my man? Like he was just here yesterday.
For 2 days he was here as
Relax.
well.
Yeah. He's been gone less time than he was here.
Right.
Like it just bump the brakes, man. No.
Give us more, Domer. Like tell us what he had these visits scheduled with other schools. Like we knew that he was going to visit some other places. Did you really expect that he was going to commit before he left? Or like, did you read Ryan Roberts had some great stuff with him, some great quotes, a great interview that he had with him. And it sounded like
it went well.
Everything went great. Like, he loved the place. So, but he had scheduled other visits. So,
and whether he takes those or not still remains to be seen. He hasn't taken them yet. Yeah. So, until you see a picture of him in Ohio State gear or picture of him in Auburn gear or whatever the case may be, like, again, he was just here yesterday, man. It's okay. Everybody relax. Let it play out, baby.
Pump
As
the brakes.
D-Rock Irish says.
Going to the
let
weekend.
It play out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, everyone seems pretty solid still, like when you listen to the national chatter about where they think Riley Leonard is going to end up. So we'll see. Maybe he does. Maybe he doesn't. Oh, so now we're on to Will Howard. Okay.
He's not an option right now. Has Will Howard visited Notre Dame? Did I miss that?
Right. Okay. There are a lot of guys you can want, but that doesn't mean it's realistic.
Nor does it mean he's a good fit at Notre Dame.
Right.
Like, I mean, yeah. So just relax. Everybody relax.
Chill. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Blake Fisher and Maris Leafau are the only two Notre Dame players to declare for the draft this week.
It's odd. I'm actually kind of shocked by the whole situation. I mean, we're seeing all these things get leaked about who's going to opt out and all of these different things. And it's literally been a week and we've got two guys. And I'm a little bit shocked by that. Like I get spacing it out so guys can have their moment and, all of those different things. And that's great. But didn't Maris, put his thing out on like Monday?
Yeah.
And now it's Friday. I mean, like it just feels odd to me that we haven't heard more from these guys. That's all. It just feels odd.
I agree. I really thought that the way Marcus Freeman talked when we got to talk to him in his Sun Bowl press conference on Monday, when he said that he was going to let the guy, he knows they know who's playing and who's not.
It's
he was
like
going to let those guys do their
the
thing.
Worst kept secrets on the planet.
I know. And so, I kind of expected like a slow trickle, maybe one a day for the rest of the week or something like that. Instead, we got Maris Leafau on one end of the week, and we got Blake Fisher at the end of the week. I thought that we would just really know by now.
in my
especially
head,
when you're factoring in,
yeah,
it's not just the draft guys, but there are potential opt-out guys as well. Other guys
for
who
sure.
might be deciding not to play in the bowl. And there's probably 4 or 5 total that were kind of still,
I think I
maybe
counted
even more than
5.
that overall. Yeah, that we're still kind of waiting on.
I counted 5 in my head of guys that I'm like 95% sure are opting out of the bowl game and moving on, whatever that moving on means.
Mm-hmm.
But I counted like 5 guys. Like I'm shocked we've only heard from 2. I'll just say that.
It's like, if you know, you know. What
Yeah.
are you waiting on at this point?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just
Because you're
make the
not
announcement.
practicing. You're not practicing because Marcus Freeman said he knew everybody that was opting out. So I don't know. It just feels weird.
Couple questions from the chat that I'll throw in here in a minute. But
Cool.
first, on this same subject, let's kind of check our confidence on some other
Oh.
Notre Dame guys who could still declare. This is just declare for the draft. We're not talking
Okay.
opt out. Okay.
Okay.
So we're going to go scale of 1 to 10 for each of these guys. How confident are you they will declare for the draft?
Okay. So 10
again,
is they're going to the draft.
10 is they're going to the draft. 1
they're
is
coming back. Okay.
probably coming back. Okay.
Okay.
So let's start with Joe Alt. Scale of 1 to 10. How confident are you he's going to declare?
Like a 10. I would be shocked if he came back. I would be ecstatic, but I would be absolutely shocked if he came back.
Yes. Completely in the same boat. Again, like, this is a guy projected maybe even a top 5 pick.
You can't pass that up, man.
10.
Like,
right.
That's
the definition of life-changing money.
Correct.
Right? This one goes to 11.
Yeah. The whole point of going to college is to prepare you for the rest of your life. Joe Alt is sufficiently prepared for the rest of his life. It's time to go. It's time to go.
Right. Audric estimate. Scale of 1 to 10. How confident are you he declares?
9.5. 9.5. He's another guy that I would tell him to go for all the reasons that we've talked about. The shelf life of a running back is super short. You only get so many carries. My brother, thank you for hanging. It's time to go.
Yep. And again, running backs on average have the shortest career of any position in the NFL. Go get your money as soon as you can. Save the hits on your body. Get as much money as you can. They're the ones who need to get their clock started so they can, so that he can hopefully do really well for 4 years, get to that second contract and make some money, because it's getting harder even for running backs to get that second contract, and so, so I'm 9+ on Audric estimate as well, that he will declare for the draft.
Yeah. I've got a, John's throwing some shade here. It says, becoming obvious that the people at Notre Dame in charge of releasing info work far fewer hours than you guys do. Are you saying we don't work very much? Is that what you're saying? Like, I can't tell.
I think he's saying that we work more.
We do, but like he's saying they work so little, like he's not setting the bar very high.
Even less than us,
Yeah, like that's the way I took it. I don't know how I feel about that, John.
Sean 7, Vince becoming less obvious. People at Notre Dame in charge of releasing info far fewer. Well, and I mean, now, in fairness, this is about when the player is ready to, release the info as well.
This is also true.
It's not just about, the people doing, they might help them put together the graphic and the slide and all that.
And they're definitely coming from Notre Dame. You can tell which one's the Notre Dame graphics and, that kind of a thing. So
Right. Exactly.
Just messing with you, John. But, I hope you don't think that we don't put in, he said, I'm so sensitive. Oh, you're right. I am kind of sensitive. What can I say?
John said, saying that we work more.
I got thin skin, man.
Okay, so how about Xavier Watts? Scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you he declares for the draft?
I'll tell you what, Sean, a week ago, before like the Nagurski Award and all the All-America, nods and all of these different things, I was like a 2, like a 1 or a 2. Like, he's coming back, baby, and I'm fired up about it. And now he's the best defensive player in the country. He's on all the All-America lists. And so that number has risen for me. I'll put it at like a 5 right now, like kind of like a 50-50 at this point. Like, I think you have to ask the question, and I think it's a legitimate question. It's like, what more can you do? What more can you do?
Well, Now, again, I spent a lot of time looking at, like Mel Kiper, Matt Miller, Field Yates, all these different position by position draft evaluations. He is not in anyone's top 5 at
Wow.
safety.
Okay.
And
Okay.
he was only rarely, he was in maybe like one top 10 even. So I think he's got a lot of work to do,
Okay. Well,
you
that's
know?
different. Okay. Gotcha.
So, and it's not, that's not me knocking him. It's just, again,
Sure.
I'm looking at what the draft evaluators are saying and listening to Xavier Watts earlier this week with some of the stuff that he was saying. Like, he thinks that there are still things that he can work on and become even better and put himself into a better position next year to be one of those highly considered safeties. So, scale of 1 to 10 that he declares for the draft, I'm going to go even a little bit lower. I'm like in the 3.5 range,
Okay.
I think. Like, listening to him this week, he's listening to to external evaluations and stuff like that, and hearing him kind of self-critique a little bit. It sounded like maybe he's leaning much more toward coming back than maybe I would have thought a week or so ago.
I
So
love
that
that
would
though.
be that would be really good news for Notre Dame if
Man,
Xavier Watts comes back for another year.
you're not kidding. When I like I said, I was fairly convinced because he talks about the education. And by the way, I can't even tell you how much I loved his comment about playing in the bowl games. Like, I want to play with my guys. Like,
Right.
yes. Like, that was refreshing.
See, and I think that's a good sign too. The fact
Yeah.
that he is saying that he's going to play,
Yeah.
So
Yeah, exactly. Which I love that. I absolutely love that. I know the education piece is very important to him and all of that as well. So and Stymie says he's got an opportunity to be a captain. Yeah, you're absolutely right. So he does have some Notre Dame things to achieve,
and
which
he
would
talked
be
about that.
awesome.
He talked about wanting to
Yeah.
be a bit like a JD Bertrand type
Yeah.
leader, getting guys fired up and,
Gosh.
getting guys motivated and stuff like that. I think it was all good signs to hear some of the things that he was saying earlier this week.
Love it.
So, yeah,
Love
me
it.
too. How about Howard Cross? This is like we've got the two interior defensive linemen, Cross and Mills. We'll obviously do Howard Cross first. Scale of 1 to 10. What are the odds you think he declares?
So Cross, I'm putting it at like a 1. I just think he's coming back. I feel really
Okay.
good about it. Mills, I'll put it like a 3. I think he's probably coming back, but we'll see. We'll see. Like, I'll feel better once I see the announcement if it actually comes. So that's where I'm at.
I'm putting each of them at a 3 because
Okay.
like each of these guys has shown up in different people's, again, the interior defensive, obviously they play different positions, but for draft purposes, you're basically either an edge or you're
Sure.
a defensive tackle, DL, whatever they want to call it. So they've each shown up sort of sporadically, but I think that they both have things that draft people, that NFL people would like to see them get a little bit better at. I mean, they both had, like, Mills, especially as the season went on, I think as he got more comfortable with that full-time role inside, he really started to take off. And Howard Cross was just a beast from start to finish this year. That, the biggest thing with him, maybe like if he can add a little more bulk, to his frame, for being that nose type guy. So I'm putting both of them at a 3. I think that there's a good shot that both of these guys come back because, again, I think that they both have things both physically and from an exo standpoint that they probably feel like they can be better and put themselves in even better positions next year.
Yeah, agreed. Those are huge gets for Notre Dame to keep them around too. That makes the defensive line.
Absolutely.
I mean, if that ends up happening, if that comes to fruition, right? That whew, huge. Sean, by the way, whatever happened to the announcements about sticking around? Did those come after the bowl game? You know what I
Good
remember? Those were
question.
all.
Do
We
they
always
do
had
that
those.
anymore?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I'm curious now. With the transfer portal being what it is, ending on January 2nd, it's so quick after the bowl games. Like, I'm curious. I mean, maybe they all happen after the bowl games. Maybe I'm rushing things a little bit, but I remember there being all those announcements. I'm sticking around. Whatever. So I'm ready for some of that.
Question from Andre. Do you have any idea right now what the scholarship tally looks like, Vince?
Oh,
Have
let
you
me
kept track of that?
see if it has been updated up to this point.
Because I think
Offensive
it started
line.
off, was it 89,
So
including the incoming freshman
I've
potentially?
got his depth chart that he has that was updated. No, ooh, that's a ways back. It says 88, but it still has Blake Fisher on there, so you can put that at
So that's
87.
87.
You
Okay.
can put that at 87. I want to see if, yeah, so 87, I think, is where they're at right now.
Okay.
So,
Well, that's pretty good.
Still have 20 offensive linemen. Something's got to give.
Right. And I think that there are, yeah, I mean, something does have to give, but like Irish Steel 63 asking if they dip into the portal for a tackle. I would not be surprised. This is
I wouldn't
something that
either.
I've heard that offensive tackle, because they've got a lot of guys I think that they are pretty confident in with the interior, but tackle is obviously a premium. Now, can get a little bit dicier, I think, finding a guy, one who's the right academic profile,
Sure.
as well as a fit profile, all those different things, who can actually come in, might end up being a right tackle as opposed to a left tackle, depending on what you find. But I think that is definitely a position they'd like to add, though.
There was a Wisconsin tackle that went into the portal, I believe, today. And that's, obviously you've got the Rudolph connection there.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's a possibility if the kid's any good. I don't know if he's good, bad, or indifferent. I honestly have no idea. So that would be a question for Brian, because I'm sure he's already watched 7 games of this guy since he jumped into the portal. But so, yes, I do think tackle is on their minds, especially with both Blake and Joe. Because look, when you are looking at your depth chart and you're, projecting and all of that, you don't think that guys are going to leave after their third true season at Notre Dame. Like that's just not how you figure out your depth chart when it comes to offensive linemen, right? And so they've got to kind of fix that hole in the depth chart, and they're loaded in the middle. They're not really loaded outside.
Yeah. Sloppy Joe wants to know if we think Blake's knee injury during his freshman year was a huge reason for him declaring.
Huge reason? No, I don't think it's a huge reason. He started 26 games straight and he's been just fine. So no, I think that's well in the rearview mirror. Was it a partial reason, like a low single-digit percentage? Maybe. But I do not think it was a large decision, no, or huge, is his words.
I would agree with that. I think it's more about getting that clock started, that whole that whole thing.
Yeah, I agree.
That pro clock and moving on and all that kind of stuff. When you have an agent and you're turning pro, agents want to cash their checks too.
Yeah.
So,
no doubt about it.
Leave it at that, I guess.
And somebody said there's more portal announcements to come after the bowl game. Again, is that possible? Sure. The problem is the game's on the 29th. The portal closes.
It's going to have to happen pretty quickly. Yeah.
Like, you're not going to be able to do your official visits, and, you better know exactly where you're going to land if that's the case. And that's tough. That's really, really tough in that short amount of time. So I think the next time you're going to see portal entries is going to be the spring session.
I think you see, just like with Tyler Buckner last year, you'll see some guys stick it out, see what they can accomplish in the spring, battle for some positions in the spring. And with some of these guys leaving, there's going to be a lot more opportunities for some other guys who haven't had some opportunities before. So, yeah, I think that it's less likely that it happens immediately after the bowl, and much more likely that it happens in the spring window in April than it,
Yeah, there's going to be more movement after spring. There absolutely will be.
Yeah. There always is. It's just something that we've got to get used to at this point. So wanted to make sure that there were no there's a question from Bubs. With tight end numbers down to start next season, do you think they would consider adding a tight end in the portal, preferably a blocking specialist?
I disagree wholeheartedly that they're low on tight end numbers.
I mean, they'll get Kevin Bauman back. And hopefully he can stay healthy. Yeah.
6 scholarship tight ends. You've got Kevin Bauman, Mitchell Evans, Davis Sherwood, Eli Raridan, Cooper Flanagan, and Jack Larson.
Yeah.
How many tight ends do you need? Would
Right.
be my question. They have 6. No, they're not going to the portal for a tight end.
And obviously, they think very highly of Eli Raridan. There's still a ton of upside.
Oh, yeah. And clearly,
the biggest question for most of these guys now is just health, because they've all been injured at some point or another, some of them multiple times now.
Right. Flanagan, they're very high on, obviously. And look, there's a reason that Stays left. I mean, he got passed up by 2 guys, and then you've got Mitchell Evans coming back as well. There was a chance that Stays was going to be the 4th tight end. He's not going to stick around for that. He's just not. So that's why he left. And so, yeah, the depth at tight end is just fine.
2 former Irish players made commitments today. Nana Osafo-Mensah going to TCU. And as the show was going on, I saw on Twitter Joey Tanona, who medically retired and just recently announced that he was coming back and entering the portal. He is committed to Purdue. What do you think about that?
Okay. First of all, good for Joey.
Yeah.
Because you hate to see guys have to medically retire. You know, you kind of want to go out on your own terms. So that's awesome. That's super awesome for him. And I'm glad Nana found a spot quickly. Obviously still in a Power 5 conference, which is awesome down in Texas. So yeah, I think that's great for both guys. I like seeing where these guys who hit the portal are going to end up, especially guys that left on good terms with Notre Dame. And it sounds like these 2 guys found really good landing spots.
Yeah. I mean, Nana gets to go home. He's, literally from Fort Worth. He gets to go home, play in his hometown. Family can be there, see him play for a year. So that's great. Joey Tanona, just a great story. There was actually on that Miami Dolphins in-season Hard Knocks, I can't remember if it was this week or last week, this guy named Jalen Phillips. It reminded me a little bit of Tanona because when he was at UCLA, he was a defensive player, just injury after injury, apparently, and he medically retired for a couple of years himself. And then he kind of, rested up, got healed, went to the University of Miami and turned into a 1st-round draft pick. And unfortunately, he just got injured a week or 2 ago with the Miami Dolphins. I think it might have been an Achilles or something like that. So very, very unfortunate, where he is right now. But from a college standpoint, just looking at Joey Tanona, still maybe a bright future out there in front of Tanona if he can kind of put those injuries behind and come back himself. So
I love it.
Good for him. I hope it works out for him.
Yeah. Yep.
Ray wants to know who's likely to start on the offensive line in the Sun Bowl, assuming Alt is gone as well, and are they likely to run their normal offense given their current wide receiver situation? I mean, someone said Emil Wagner's going to play wide receiver,
Oh, boy.
I think that'd be a little bit different look. But
yeah, it would definitely be a different look. No, offensive line is going to be Tosh Baker at left tackle, Pat Coogan at left guard. It'll be Ashton Craig at center. It'll be
Billy Schrow,
thank you, at right guard, and then
Emil
Wagner at right tackle. And
that's what we would expect unless something drastically changes during bowl prep.
And as far as will they run their normal offense? Yeah, they're going to run their normal offense. And again, I will remind everybody, they have the exact same amount of scholarship wide receivers in this bowl game that they had in last year's bowl game. And I don't remember that being an issue then. It's going to be fine. They got plenty. They're good.
Right. And it's one game. Ray. It's one game and then the off season. So they still have some tight ends out there. And you might even though they would potentially, most likely, we think, be without Audric Estime, we didn't see as much of Devin Ford, with the exception of some situations down the stretch. Maybe a chance for, maybe we see a little more of the 21 personnel from time to time, just doing some different things with personnel like we saw earlier. My point is whether or not we specifically see that, there are some other options and some different things they can do. They did have Ford and Love out there together, at times earlier in the season. Again, didn't see as much of it later, but yeah, there's a lot of things that they can do between the running backs and the tight ends to compensate for the fact that they don't have big numbers right now at receiver. But like you said, I mean, you're talking about the same amount of guys they had for last year's bowl, and things worked out okay.
Right. I mean, they're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're going to have 6 scholarship receivers ready to go from all accounts, right? So 6 is more than enough for one game. It's not enough for a season, but it's more than enough for one game.
Right. Right. Who's going to win the Heisman, Vince?
I would love it if Michael Penix won the Heisman. I think SEC bias will take over and Jaden Daniels will end up winning it. And he is not who I want to win it because I don't want Brian Kelly to have coached a Heisman
to get on his resume
winner.
that he's got a Heisman.
Do not
Mike
want
Denbrock, man. Mike Denbrock became a hot commodity.
Now, see, that's the difference, though, because I love Mike Denbrock, and I would love for him to be associated with a Heisman Trophy winner. But yeah, I think I would love Penix to win it, but I think Jaden Daniels is going to end up making that happen.
And I think I saw that A&M made a big push for Denbrock before they ended up with
I believe it.
With the Kansas State.
He's a good OC, man. Like,
I know.
He made it hum at Cincinnati, and he obviously did a great job at LSU.
This is why Daniels, Nix, and Penix all have great numbers. But Daniels has over 3,800 passing yards and over 1,100 rushing yards and 50 total touchdowns and completed 72% of his passes. That is just insane.
The offense was not the problem down in the Bayou, folks.
No, they didn't lose because of the offense.
No.
Not at all.
No.
And I think Marvin Harrison is a good receiver. I just don't think he's got the numbers to back. I just don't think that he was Heisman worthy type receiver year.
He didn't show up against Notre Dame, or they shut him down.
True.
Whichever route you want to take on that, that's one of the biggest games they had this year, and he was non-existent.
Mm-hmm.
That's not Heisman worthy to me. Sorry.
I agree. He had some big games, that's for sure. But what about Army Navy? Big interest there?
Because it's football, I'll probably have it on. It's usually at noon too, isn't it?
I think it's at 3.
Oh, is it at 3? So I'll be able to watch most of it.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I have.
I usually, tune in, tune out, kind of see what the score is.
Yep.
Whatever that kind of thing.
And it's in December, so sometimes there's snow. It can be one of those types of games. I'll tune in to see because they probably have cool uniforms, for this game. And I do like.
That's actually what I like to tune in to find out. Okay, what do the alternate uniforms look like? Who's got the cooler ones?
I do think it's pretty cool when they all march in at the beginning and they do their formations and stuff on the field, and then they head up into the stands and stuff like that. So I really do enjoy the pageantry, and I do like how the president sits on one side for the first half, the other side on the second half. And, I like some of that tradition and some of that stuff. So I will tune in. I don't know how close I'll be paying attention to the actual gameplay, but I will tune in.
I don't think I've ever watched start to finish, but again, tune in, tune out, kind of check in. If it stays close, I'll come back for the fourth quarter, that kind of thing. But it's we called option football for a few years on the radio.
Yes,
it's tough. Two option teams head to head, that can be tough sometimes. I'm a little bit more, fond of the aerial, the forward pass. Thank you, Newt Rockney, for bringing that to the table in college football. All right. Well, I think that is going to do it for our special Friday edition.
I know that I had the heart out, but I'm going to throw this one up anyway because I think this needs to be asked. Okay. Paul Olmstead says, IB staff poll on what your favorite Christmas movie and is Die Hard a Christmas movie. So far, Brian, yes. Ryan, no. Sean, yes. For me, it's not Christmas until Hans falls from Nakatomi Tower. LOL. So the question really is Die Hard a Christmas movie? What do you say?
I have always fallen in the no category. It is a movie that Christmas happens to play a minor role in. There's a Christmas party and there's a tree. Other than that, and some eggnog, I guess. Other than that, there's there's not a real Christmas theme. It's a great action movie, but it's not a Christmas movie.
I totally agree with everything that you just said. It is not a Christmas movie. Sorry, all the people that are going to be upset with us.
I mean, I do love the fact that it always comes on in December, because like
This is
there are
true.
people who consider it a
This is
Christmas
true.
movie.
But you and I just swayed the vote for IB to say no, by the way. 3 no's, 2 yeses. The no's
Majority.
I guess we got to
wins.
ask Jesse. We'd have to ask Jesse what his opinion is. But the answer is definitely not.
I concur. All right. Well, that's going to do it. Thanks for being here tonight. We obviously don't do Friday shows on the regular, but with the Blake Fisher news, we jumped in and thought we'd have one today.
Yeah.
Had a good time.
Yeah.
Have a great weekend. We'll see how the Heisman goes. My pick was Jaden Daniels, I think, by the way, in case I didn't make that clear. Daniels wins the Heisman, I think. I'm like you. Penix is probably the guy, that I've kind of pulled for. I just don't think that he's probably going to get the votes to do it.
I don't think so either. I look, Jaden Daniels is a worthy winner. Like I said, my only beef is that he played for Brian Kelly. He's a worthy winner. That offense was him. He was the offense. Like, you can say what you want to about neighbors and whatever, but he was that offense. So, I mean, that makes a difference. It makes a difference.
Right. I mean, I'm going back, Tommy's calling me un-American now for saying Die Hard is not a Christmas movie. And it's like, it's like, is a Christmas story, is it a car movie? Like,
because there's cars in it.
Because they broke down the car and they changed the tire, like, I don't know. Like, it's not a Christmas movie. It's a really good movie. It's actually, I've got it on my DVR and I've been waiting to watch it, but Die Hard I'm talking about, not Christmas Story. It's not a Christmas movie. Just get off that kick.
We can, as it gets closer to Christmas, you and I can talk Christmas movies because I've got some very controversial takes that I'm sure people remember. But
yeah, I know. We'll have to have, I think Festivus is on a Saturday this year.
Oh, is it really?
We might have to do a special Friday Festivus on the 22nd.
I love it. We always celebrate.
Oh, I'm gonna be traveling on the 22nd. Maybe on the 21st.
Okay.
We'll have to do I don't know.
We'll have to
early Festivus. We'll have to figure something out.
We're gonna have to figure that out.
Yeah. All right. Well, have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you Monday on IB Nation Sports Talk.